Hi, Ryder and Milo. It's Grandma Denise. Today is Saturday. Saturdays are always fun days. And I have a really good story for you today. Remember the story, Gus was a friendly ghost? Do you remember that story? Gus was a friendly ghost. Well, there's another book that we used to read at Grandma and Grandpa's house, and it's called Gus and the Baby Ghost. Do you remember Gus and the Baby Ghost? Gus was a friendly ghost. It's about Gus and his friend Mouse, who lived in the house with the Smith family. And remember, the mouse got really naughty and mean. No, I guess their names were the Scott family. The mouse got mean to Mrs. Scott, and Gus had to tell him, "You be nice to Mrs. Scott." I liked that story. Well, this story has Gus in it, Gus the ghost, and it has a mouse in it, and it has a cat named Cora, a kitty cat named Cora, and a baby ghost. I didn't know there were baby ghosts, but in this story, there's a baby ghost. So I'm going to read it to you today. Let me get this on the screen. See if this is working. Okay. Here we go. Let's make this big. And the name of this story is, hold on, Gus and the Baby Ghost. Gus and the Baby Ghost. Here we go. Gus, the ghost, and Mr. Frizzle ran the historical museum. Gus at night and Mr. Frizzle during the day. Mr. Frizzle lived upstairs. Gus had an attic apartment. An attic is way at the top of the house. Cora the cat lived here and there, and Mouse the mouse lived in his own private quarters. So there's Cora the cat. There's Mouse, and his name is Mouse. And there's Gus. Well, late one night when Gus was in charge, Cora came in from a moonlight walk and she said, "A baby ghost is outside." What? Let's go see. Sure enough, a baby ghost wrapped in a ghostly blanket lay outside. A baby ghost wrapped in a ghostly blanket lay on the step. So there's Gus, there's Cora the kitty cat, and there's a little baby ghost. Huh. "What do I do with it?" Gus cried. "Wah!" yelled the baby ghost. "Feed," said Cora. "Grown-up ghosts never get hungry, but baby ghosts do." I didn't know that. Baby ghosts get hungry. Gus carried the baby ghost in his blanket into the old-fashioned kitchen and found some milk. "Warm," advised Cora. So Gus warmed the milk. "Bottle," said Cora. So Gus made some ghostly remarks and a baby bottle appeared. Remember, ghosts can do magic, and Gus can do magic. So he magically made the baby bottle appear. "Wah!" yelled the baby ghost when the milk was gone. "Burp," advised Cora. So Gus tossed baby ghost over his shoulder and patted until a bubble came up. "Wah!" "Change," directed Cora. Gus produced a clean diaper. "Coo," said the baby ghost contentedly when the diaper was changed. So baby ghosts are just like regular babies. You give them a bottle, you put them over your shoulder, and you pat them so that they burp, and you change their diaper so they have clean diapers. Just like regular babies. Except for they're not regular babies, they're ghost babies. Okay, here's Mr. Frizzle. He's grumpy. That's Mr. Frizzle. He comes down the stairs. He doesn't look very friendly, does he? He looks angry. Looks angry. Sleepy, said Cora. So Gus laid the baby ghost in the antique cradle and he covered it with an old paisley shawl when Mr. Frizzle came running downstairs with his bathrobe flying. See, so Gus is putting the baby to bed with a little pretty shawl. It's a paisley shawl. Paisley is like a pattern on a shawl or a blanket. There's Cora. She's watching Gus taking care of the baby. Mr. Frizzle was mad. Mr. Frizzle said, "I thought I heard a baby," he cried. "Baby ghost," corrected Gus. "Where?" yelled Mr. Frizzle. "Cradle," said Gus. Well, the cradle looked empty to Mr. Frizzle, but he could see it was rocking gently. "What the thunder is it doing here?" he shouted. "Sleeping," said Gus. Mr. Frizzle, who had a terrible temper, began to shout and tell Gus he wouldn't have baby ghosts in his museum. Gus began to shout back, not knowing what else to do. Cora went under the Boston rocker and Mouse scurried into the wall. Let's see what happens. Baby ghost is here. Mr. Frizzle is very mad. He doesn't want to have a baby ghost in his museum. And Gus is mad too because he does want to have the baby ghost. So baby ghost waked up with all the noise and yelled, "Wah!" And Cora the kitty cat under the rocker said, "Meow." And Mouse snarled, "Shut up." "Go to bed," Frizzle shouted Ghost. He didn't want Mr. Frizzle to be mean to the baby ghost. Finally, Mr. Frizzle pounded upstairs. When he had gone, Gus sat down with a sigh of relief in the Boston rocker, and Cora leaped on his lap. So here's Gus, and he's rocking on the rocker. Cora is sitting on his lap, and there's the baby ghost in the rocker, rocking back and forth. Gus rocked the cradle until the baby ghost fell asleep. Gus understood how Mr. Frizzle felt, but Mr. Frizzle was proud that many people came to see the museum, and he didn't want anything to frighten them. Gus kept out of the way, but a crying baby ghost might not. "I'll do something tomorrow," thought Gus. He fell asleep rocking the cradle. Baby ghost slept, and Cora slept. Only Mouse whisked about busily looking for crumbs of something. There's the mouse. He wants to eat some crumbs, doesn't he? When daylight came, Gus warmed another bottle for baby ghost. "Bath," advised Cora. Gus got a baby's bathtub and filled it with warm, ghostly water. Baby Ghost was so cute, splashing and happily gurgling that Gus began to feel happy himself. When he had it all dry and smelling of ghostly talcum powder, he decided he would keep the little baby ghost. So Gus gave the baby ghost a bubble bath and then put some nice powder on the baby after the bath. "But I can't keep it in my attic apartment," he told himself. "It has to sleep in a cradle. Besides, my ghostly bones are too old to run up and down the stairs with bottles." He carried baby ghost back with the cradle. "Wah!" cried baby ghost, who was hungry again. Down came Mr. Frizzle, filled with fury. "It's still here," he cried. "Shh," said Gus. "Call the police," shouted Mr. Frizzle. "Very funny," said Gus. "Wah!" said the baby ghost. Mr. Frizzle's kind of grumpy. Ugh, I don't like grumpy Mr. Frizzle. Gus is just trying to take care of the baby ghost. Well, Mr. Frizzle called the police. "There's a baby ghost in the historical museum. Come and get it." "Beg pardon?" said the police. "I want to get rid of a baby ghost," shouted Mr. Frizzle. So 2 policemen came to the museum. "What seems to be the trouble?" they said. Mr. Frizzle called the police. There's 2 policemen. Mr. Frizzle's mad. "We've got a baby ghost," said Mr. Frizzle. "Are you feeling all right, Mr. Frizzle?" asked the police. "I feel fine," shouted Frizzle. "Show us this baby ghost," said the policeman politely. So they don't believe that there's really a baby ghost there. Mr. Frizzle knows there is, but the police don't know yet. But Gus had decided he was going to scare the policeman away. So he raced upstairs and he brought down his bang clank equipment, which he kept in case somebody wanted to hear a ghost clanking. So he brought a chain and a pan and spoons and more pans, and he was making clink, clank, clank, bang, clank noises. Bang, clank went Gus on his bang, clank equipment. Wah, yelled the baby ghost at the noise, and the policemen turned pale and bumped into each other, rushing out of the door. If you turn pale, that means you turn white because you're afraid. They ran out because they were afraid of the noises. Just then an early visitor arrived. Keep that kid quiet, hissed Frizzle. Gus snatched baby Ghost from the cradle and gave it a bottle. He sang a ghostly lullaby until it went back to sleep. So there's Gus with the baby, and there's Cora, the kitty cat, and people are visiting the museum. Frizzle felt calmer when the visitor left without knowing they had a baby ghost. He said in a reasonable voice, "Now, Gus, you know you've got to get rid of it. If I keep it quiet," Gus thought craftily, "Frizzle will never know it's here." "Leave it to me, Frizzle," he said, and Mr. Frizzle went off, reassured. So then Gus got a book on the care and feeding of baby ghosts. So he and Cora the cat are reading a book on how to take care of a baby ghost. He ordered milk from the milkman and put supplies on baby food, ghostly diapers, and talcum powder to keep baby ghosts comfy. He found a ghostly rattle and other toys to keep it amused. He oiled the antique music box so it played tinkly tunes that baby ghosts liked to hear. Baby Ghost was content and he did not cry. So Gus read a book about how to take care of a baby, and that helped a little bit by reading the book to learn more. But one day, Mr. Frizzle, who thought the baby ghost was gone, happened to be passing the cradle when he heard a soft coo. He stopped short and stared at the cradle. "You didn't get rid of it," he shouted. "Wah!" yelled baby ghost, alarmed at the noise. "Meow!" yowled Cora, alarmed by the baby ghost. "Listen, Frizzle!" yelled Gus, because Gus, he does not like Mr. Frizzle just yelling all the time. That's just kind of mean and crabby. Then he lowered his voice. Gus said, "If you would control your temper, everything would be fine." Finally, Mr. Frizzle sat down in the Boston rocker, not knowing what else to do. He lowered his voice too, and he said, "Harumph." He stared at the cradle, which still looked empty to him. See, because Mr. Frizzle can't see the baby ghost. Gus can see the baby ghost, and Cora can see the baby ghost, and even Mouse can see the baby ghost. Not Mr. Frizzle, probably because he's grumpy all the time. "Do you swear it won't cry and ruin business?" he demanded. "If you don't come roaring around," retorted Gus. "Harumph," said Mr. Frizzle. So then Gus put a large sign. He put up a large sign. It says, "Quiet, please. Quiet, please," because babies need quiet, don't they? "Quiet, please," to remind Mr. Frizzle. Mr. Frizzle began to talk to visitors in hushed tones, so he talked more quietly. He stopped shouting at Gus. He didn't even say harumph because he didn't want to make the baby ghost cry and alarm the people. But Gus saw him glance at the cradle sometimes, and he knew Mr. Frizzle was nervous. One day, Mr. Frizzle was telling a lady visitor in hushed tones so he wouldn't wake up a baby ghost. "This is an antique cradle." Suddenly, Mr. Frizzle, the visitor, and Gus, who was nearby, were startled to hear quite plainly, "Coo, coo." So the little baby ghost made a sound of coo to the lady who was being nice. "Have you got a baby ghost?" the lady cried. "Certainly not," cried Mr. Frizzle. "Oh, I wish you had a baby ghost," said the lady sadly. Frizzle looked at the lady in surprise. He eyed her suspiciously. Was she joking? He liked to please the visitors in his museum, so finally Mr. Frizzle said cautiously, "Well, we might have a small baby ghost." The lady rushed off to tell her friends that this was wonderful, delightful. His I'm going to start over that sentence. The lady rushed off to tell her friends that this wonderful, delightful historical museum had something very special, a real baby ghost. Ha! So soon, crowds of people came, tiptoed in, and stood around waiting to hear the baby ghost in the antique cradle under the old Paisley shawl say, "Coo." So people, when they found out about the baby ghost, wanted to come and see it. There's Gus, and there's Cora, and there's a mom and a little girl and a dad. They're coming to see the baby ghost. Look, everyone's looking to see if they can hear the baby ghost or see the baby ghost. They're excited about it. Your baby ghost sounds so happy, everyone whispered. Mr. Frizzle proudly whispered back, our baby ghost has a happy home. That's why. So now Mr. Frizzle, who was grumpy at first, now he likes the baby ghost. He's funny. Before long, Baby Ghost was a permanent member of the household. Sometimes when the museum closed after a busy day, Mr. Frizzle sat down in the Boston rocker in a rare good humor. Cora leaped into his lap. Mouse kept as quiet as a mouse. Mr. Frizzle rocked the cradle. Oh, so now Mr. Frizzle likes the baby ghost. While Gus hung baby ghosts, ghostly washing out in the evening air. So Mr. Frizzle's rocking the cradle, and Gus the ghost, is hanging out the wash, the baby diapers from the baby ghost. I like that. He's doing that. And that is the end of the story about Gus and the baby ghost. That's a pretty fun story. I liked that. I I liked Cora the cat because she helped Gus take care of the baby. She told Gus that the baby needed a bottle, he needed a blanket. The baby ghost needed to be burped. So Cora was a helper. She helped Gus with the baby ghost. And Mouse was in the story. Mouse didn't do too much. And at first, Mr. Frizzle was really grumpy and he didn't like it, the ghost. But then later he decided he did like the baby ghost. So that is a fun story about learning about things that you don't know about. Gus didn't know about a baby ghost and how to take care of the baby ghost, but he learned. And Mr. Frizzle didn't know anything about baby ghosts, but he listened and learned too. And that's fun when you listen and learn something. I like that. So that's our story for today. And I hope you guys had a really, really fun day. I bet you did. And I will see you next time. Okay. I love you. Bye bye.